Hello and welcome to another episode of Tracy Takes On. Tonight is going to be a little bit different. I am solo again, and I apologize for not having an episode last week. I was not feeling well at all. There was no way I was going to tape, and then I was going to do a solo episode Tuesday, but I still wasn't feeling well till about Wednesday of last week. So again, apologies for not having an episode last week, but I'm here this week, and of course next week the panel will be back. So I decided this is a good time to do a solo episode. Just to kind of get caught up on what we might have missed. So there's a lot to talk about, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go in the order that I'll say it. So be patient with me, please. I want to talk about the Matt Gaetz situation. I want to talk about the trial of the officer that killed George Floyd. And I want to, of course, talk about the new Georgia law that's taken effect, possibly touch on the new infrastructure bill, and then we'll do my idiot of the week, and then we'll take it from there. So, of course, if you have been living under a rock, Congressman Matt Gaetz, is a super huge Trump supporter. He is from Florida. Yes, he's from Florida. And he was elected to Congress 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I forget what the time frame was. But he was one of the ones that when Liz Cheney had voted to impeach Trump, he actually went to her district in Wyoming to campaign against her. So he it's alleged that he has had sexual relations with a girl at the time. She was a girl. She was 17. And that's totally illegal. And he took that 17-year-old out of state, which now that brings on a child trafficking charge, which is a federal offense. If he's charged, he could be facing prison time and, of course, removal from Congress. Now, what's strange about the Matt Gaetz case is this. The reason it all came about publicly is he had actually been investigated last year, and no one knew about it. I certainly didn't know anything about him being investigated last year. So that was when 45 was president. Well, he's never been president, but he held the title. So he was president last year, and you know how he was. Anybody that supported him, he would do favors for. But apparently these charges just superseded all of that. And the investigation kept continuing, pardon me. And we just found out about him because another case that he is linked to has came about. And so that person has the last name Greenberg. And I'm looking at my phone because I'm trying to find out what his first name is. And I know his last name is Greenberg, but I can't figure out what his first name is. So I'm going to look at my phone here. And guys, I apologize for this, but I should have had this research well before I came on, but I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to think of his name. And now his name is like leaving my mind. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Extremity? No. Let's see. I'm going to get this guy's name. I know it's Greenberg, but I can't think about what his first name is. That's just really, really, it's really annoying me. And I'm like, I know this guy's name. I know his face, but I'm going to read this article further. And he was first elected in 2016. So that's been about 4 years. Joe Greenberg. Okay, so Joe Greenberg is a tax auditor that lives in the state of Florida. And him and Gates are really, really chummy. So this is where the sex trafficking allegations come from. So Greenberg apparently, well, no, he's actually been indicted on charges that he used his office to siphon campaign funds and funds from tax auditing to friends that participated in his weddings. He used some of those dollars to pay for sex. And one of those alleged um, contributions came to the girl that was under 17 that Matt Gaetz is accused of sleeping with, I assume. Then there's also text messages where he and Gaetz contacted another person, another woman, and engaged her in sex with each one of them. So this case has got all kinds of mess going on with it. Gaetz is also charged with using the taxpayers' funds to buy computers for his personal business, again, siphoning money off to people that contributed in his wedding. It's just a mess. And things haven't gotten better for Gaetz at all. He came out on Fox to do an interview and somehow ended up indicating that Tucker Carlson knew all about this. And you could tell by the look on Carlson's face that he was just totally shocked by this allegation. I'll link it, maybe, but I won't show it because YouTube will hit me if I do. Another thing that's surprising about this is the Republicans have not called for his resignation. Two, Jim Jordan and laser tag girl Marjorie Taylor Greene have both stood behind him. And that's amazing to me because, you know, if you know anything about Marjorie Taylor Greene, is she believes in that QAnon, Jim Jones Kool-Aid stuff that says that Trump was sent to Earth to rescue us from the child pedophiles. And so now that you have this evidence that alleges that he's involved in child pedophilia or child rape, now you're supporting it. That seems very strange to me. But she and Jim Jordan, another person who's had some sex allegations against him, have come out and defended Gaetz. So that was strange. And the Republican chair, or the chair of the minority component of the House, McCarthy, said that he wasn't even thinking about removing Gaetz from a committee that oversees the department that he's being investigated by because he hasn't been convicted. And that is just amazing to me that he would even publicly say that. I mean, and I know he's trying to go to the innocent until proven guilty mode, but if this Joel Greenberg starts talking to lessen his sins, which he probably will, I don't see why they don't go to him and say, you know, it's time for you to resign, because that's just if he goes to jail, that's automatic. He would automatically get removed from Congress because nobody's going to want to vote for someone that's been accused of sex trafficking. And come to find out, he was the only legislator to vote against a sex trafficking bill last year. Like every other Republican voted for it. All the Democrats voted for it except for him. And that was so unusual because I'm like, okay, huh? That's just amazes me, and I'm shocked by it because I'm thinking, okay, it's a bill that would address sex trafficking. You would vote against it for what reason? You're sex trafficking? That's the only conclusion that I can come to. I would like for him to at least discuss, you know, why it is that he voted for it. or voted against it. I'm sorry, voted against it because that's just so strange to me that he decided um, not to vote for it. It's just like, oh, you literally have no reason. And if you had heard his defense, okay, this is where it got really strange for me. So I'm going to do my best to explain this, and I hope that I do this justice. So Matt Gaetz claims that his father, who is essentially, I got this stupid here in front of my face, sorry. Matt Gaetz claims that his father, who's apparently very wealthy, was approached by someone outside the investigation that said that if they paid him, that they paid this person, I believe it was $25 million, but please don't quote the amount because I'm not sure. If they paid him a certain amount of money, that person could get the Biden administration, not the past Trump administration, but the current Biden administration to pardon him. Okay, but don't know that, and two things could be true. One, it could be true that he is guilty of sex trafficking. Of course, there has to be a trial, there has to be an indictment, all those things. So that could be true, and it could be true that he's also getting um, blackmailed. Essentially, that's what it is. He's getting blackmailed or exonerated for this money. The problem is with the exoneration thing is that the person they name is apparently missing. That's where I was like, okay, I don't, and I'm not the brightest of people, but that explanation literally made no sense to me. I kept trying to think about it, kept trying to run it through my mind, and it just was a blank. And again, I would just love him to explain that again. I would love to play it on this channel, but again, I'll get hit by YouTube, and I'm not trying to do that. He hasn't sat down with anyone from Fox is a major network, but he hasn't sat down with anybody else except for Fox. So that's all that we have. And it's, you know, it's just so confusing to me. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. So the guy that is exonerating him for money says he can get you off with the current Biden administration. So wouldn't that make him want to vote for everything that Biden is proposing if he's trying to get off? Or he could be saying, and I just thought of this, he could be saying, well, I'm innocent. Why am I paying you anything? Okay, so if you're being exonerated or if your father is being exploited for this money and being asked to pay for this money, why not report that to the FBI? I'm assuming that's a crime. I'm pretty sure it is. So why don't you just take that and then report it um, to the authorities instead of just bringing it up as oh, well, this could have happened. I don't like to say I don't believe people's stories because, again, you are guilty until you are proven innocent. No, let me backtrack that. You are innocent until you are proven guilty in a court of law. And I believe that. But this guy is just, he's coming up with some bad excuses. He is, the whole exploitation, exoneration thing, just literally, I'm like, okay, say that again. It's like I kept having to rerun it through my mind and run it through my mind and run it through my mind because it didn't make sense, and he's making himself look more guilty. He's definitely making himself get more guilty. And again, he's saying he's not going to resign. I don't expect he will. But like I said, if that friend, and I'm saying friend in quotes, if he is presented with the opportunity to testify against Gaetz and does it, I think he's got to resign. And of course, if he's indicted and then goes to prison, you don't have a choice. You have to resign. You can't hold a seat and be in prison, not jail, because there's a difference. You can't hold a seat and be in Congress. You can't hold a congressional seat and be in prison at the same time. Oh goodness, I have to get it all out of my mouth. Okay, so it's just a mess, and I'm waiting for more and more information to come through. But I just don't. I don't know. And if he's using campaign money for it, that becomes even worse. He's saying, of course, I would never sleep with a 17-year-old girl. Well, we haven't heard about the alleged 17-year-old, so I'm hoping this isn't true. Not for his sake, because I don't care anything about him, but for the 17-year-old girl's sake. That's who I hope this is not true for. Like I said, Gates, I could care less about, but I don't want it to be true for her sake and the sake of these other women that are allegedly connected with this. So that's my thoughts about the Gates situation. I wanted to talk about the Georgia vote and that that Georgia passed its. I want to say something so bad, but I don't curse on my own channel, so I'm going to try to contain myself. Georgia passed its highly racist voter suppression bill. And in response to that, some companies came out and the response was very timid. It was poor. If you look at Delta Airlines, that's one I really want to name. They had a very, I'm like, do they not have a communications department that could have wrote that? Or if they did, maybe they need to be hiring some other people. That statement was just terrible. Some other companies had came out and did a little like finger tap type of or hand slap thing, but it was a light little tap on the hand type of thing. But eventually they wrote a more convincing release. Coca-Cola submitted a release stating they were in opposition to what was passed. However, Major League Baseball completely pulled out of the state of Georgia for this law. Then there's 2 points to this, and I want to talk about. One, their governor, who shouldn't be governor, should actually be Stacey Abrams, but that's a whole nother point for another show. He states that, this is a cancer culture. And I love how Republicans will phrase everything in the past couple weeks for them has been about the cancer culture. Well, nobody made you sign this into law. You caused this when you signed it into law. And that little press conference that he held talking about it's not racist, but couldn't answer why polling sites in mostly predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods were closing does not fly with me at all. But in terms of the Major League Baseball thing, he came out and said, this is going to cost Georgians millions of dollars, and it may result in job loss, et cetera, et cetera. And then you had some people on the other side that kind of agreed with him and stated, this isn't the way to do it, that there are other ways to protest. And I could see that sort of kind of maybe. So if this isn't, for those people that think like that, if this isn't a way to protest, do you think that Major League Baseball should just submit a statement condoning the passage of the bill and not do anything else? So that's what I don't understand their phrasing of, this isn't the way to do it. And I don't get what it is that they're saying that companies should do instead. I heard one person state that they should just pressure them. Well, pressure them to do what? So the bill is already law. There's no more pressuring. Another question that wasn't asked is, where is the game going to go to? Because there are 46 other states that are having laws that are not as suppressive as Georgia, but they're pretty much near the top in terms of, or they're pretty much as racist as Georgia laws. So where would they go? I mean, almost every state except for three um, are proposing limiting voter access. So I don't know where baseball is going to go to play the major league game, all-star game. They can't go to New York because New York has laws on the book. They can't go to. I'm trying to think of every city that has a major league baseball team. We don't have one, so I'm like, well, they can't come here. We don't even have a major league team in Indianapolis. So it's like, well, we're not getting one. We're not getting the games. I could say Illinois, but they probably won't. Ohio. Definitely not Texas. They had a corporation say what Texas was doing was not right. And I forgot to include that when Delta came out against what the state of Georgia was doing, legislators in their house also proposed a law that would take away Delta's tax credits. I'm like, okay, that was real petty. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that point when I had started, so I forgot that, so I had to go back. But yeah, I'm wondering where are they going to go, because there's really, I mean, unless you're going to talk about playing the games in Hawaii, New Jersey, those are two places I can think of that don't have voter suppression laws on the books, and they've actually strengthened. I literally don't know. So, and I'm trying to see, have they moved where they're going to move it to? And I'll know here in just a moment, because I'm like, okay. I'm looking at my phone, so I'm sorry. I'm just trying to see, have they decided where the All-Star game is? Okay, All-Star game 2021. Okay, so they have it down to 6 alternative cities, and they haven't announced one yet. So let's see what those cities are. Milwaukee, which is in Wisconsin, voter restrictive laws. Los Angeles. Now, California is a state I'm unsure about. I think um, they have a Democratic governor, so he might veto it. I'm assuming he would veto it. So if it doesn't pass, then California would be a place they could have it. So they're talking about Dodger Stadium. Global Life Field, which is in Arlington, Texas, no. They have water restriction laws. Here's one I didn't even think of: Puerto Rico. I didn't even think of Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico, while technically not a state, they do vote for president. So I'm like, okay, so that might be a place. Wrigleyville, Chicago, Illinois. No, they have anti-voter laws going. And Yankee Stadium in New York. In New York, of course, I just said has anti-voter laws going in place. So those are the 6. And like I said, California could be strong if once the and again, I'm just assuming that the governor is going to veto it. And then I'm assuming that California has these laws that are in the process. I don't know either of those, but the other cities I know definitely do have. And just because they have them on the books, of course, that doesn't mean that they are going to pass them. That just means that some idiot thought, gee, let's suppress blacks and browns and young people from voting. So that's that. Um, Another issue I wanted to talk about was the trial of let's see, how can I say? Because I never get the cop's name right, but his name is Shuwan. Basically, I want to talk about the George Floyd trial. I have not watched it. Um, I can't because two things are happening. One is, and they both kind of connect. Is one is I'm deeply saddened about the way he passed, and I'm also saddened by the way the defense is trying to bring up his his drug use, which has nothing to do with how he passed away. There was I saw clips of some testimonies, and everyone was in tears. Everyone was who testified, um, except the police officer they brought, or the lieutenant that they brought up um, to testify. But he was the only one not crying. Everyone else was crying, breaking down, and it was hard for me to watch because um, it was just hard. And it, hopefully, um, hopefully, hopefully, the cop who killed him will be um, charged. Well, he is charged. He's definitely charged, but he'll be convicted. And we'll just see. I got a whole lot more thoughts about this, and I just want to go over real quickly. I wanted to talk about a couple things. I wanted to talk about why the prosecution only did a second-degree murder charge. That's the first thing I want to talk about because I know people have told me, oh, it would be hard to prove intentional murder. But my point is, it became intentional when that cop put his knee on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. He could have, not to say that I think putting a knee on someone's neck is good, but 9 minutes, he could have put it, well, one, he could have put him on his side like protocol calls him to do. Or if he was going to use that type of violence, which again, I don't condone, he could have put his knee on his neck for 2 minutes. It's still wrong, but I don't see how that's not a first degree murder charge. And I'm not a lawyer, so if anybody is, please explain it to me because I keep thinking all they're asking for is 12 years. And he probably is going to get 6 for good behavior, so he'll only serve 6 years. And then it's possible if we don't get rid of police anonymity or unanimity or whatever it is it's called when they can go from one town to another, it's a good chance that he may be hired by another police department. Probably won't, but I just don't understand why that short amount of time is being asked for and why it's not first degree murder. Because like I said, once he put that knee on that neck for nine minutes, it became, that's intentional. That's perfectly intentional. Now he may not have set out, like woke up and said, oh, I'm going to put my knee on somebody's neck for 9 minutes. But certainly during that situation, there was protocol established by that police department that he didn't even bother to use. My second point is, when the Floyd family sued, did they sue the police department? Because apparently this person had several other comments or several other grievances filed against him. I think it was 18 total, and nothing was ever done. So this isn't his first time. What reasoning are you giving that he's still on the force? You're not suspending him. You're not training him. Apparently you aren't writing him up. What is it about him that's keeping him as a police officer? That doesn't make sense to me either. Another thing that doesn't make sense to me is the way that the defense is trying to, again, use the fact that George Floyd may have been high on, I'm assuming they're talking about marijuana. I don't know. And that he had other conditions that caused his death. I was fairly certain that I thought that the autopsy report said that it was a homicide. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I don't think that I am. So I'm going to check that after this program or after this taping because I just don't know. I'm like, okay, where? And I guess they're the defense, so they have to come up with something. They had to come up with some kind of um, defense. I don't know if the cop is going to testify. I don't think it's a good idea that he does. But if he does, well, I've heard some people say put a knee on his neck for 9 minutes and see how he feels. We can't do that. Um, Although, well, not going to get into that. Um, if he does testify, and I was the prosecutor, I would just ask why did he go against the protocol? There's a clear protocol according to the lieutenant that was set and he didn't follow it. What made him want to go against that protocol? If he was saying that George Floyd was being not responsive to his commands, why didn't he tase him? Why didn't he put him in the backseat of the police car? Why didn't he put him on his side? Why did he think that a knee on the neck was the appropriate response when it clearly was not? Does he feel remorse for that? Probably not. Why does he think he did the right thing when that's against the protocol? What about the other 18 cases? Did you go against protocol on those issues? There's so much to be asked about that, and it's not even being explored. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, and I'm hoping he testifies so that the prosecution can ask him that question. I don't even know who the defense is going to get. Who is going to get up there and say, you know what, he did the right thing? Are they going to have their own corner that comes out and says, hey, Floyd was high that day, so that's why he got it? I don't know who they're going to get. But from the clips I saw, he had to, if that's a paid attorney, he just needs to plead poor and get himself a court appointed attorney because that guy is, he's not doing it. I'm like, okay, I have no law degree, never studied law, never went to school for it. All I know is what I see on TV court cases. I could have did better than that. Of course, I would just said, hey, take the plea bargain because you know you did it, but that's just me. That's me. Um, Again, that's just me saying that this should be done. So that's my thoughts about the George Floyd case. I know it's going to be moving into week 2 testimony, and I'm not sure what's going to be this week. I think this week is more of the technical, like the autopsy reports from other police departments about how they handle other situations and things like that. So it'll be interesting. Now, it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of that because if the verdict comes back not guilty, I would not want to be in that city being a police officer. I would not because so many people are going to riot and they're going to cause commotion and a disruption. And it won't be pretty if this ends up being a not guilty verdict. Of course, I think it should automatically be a guilty verdict, but you never know with these court cases because all it takes is a mistrial, and that takes just one person saying no, he's innocent and not willing to change their vote. That's all it takes. And again, if that happens, then you're gonna have to go back to trial all over again. And then, anything less than a guilty verdict is definitely not good news at all. So hopefully the prosecution will continue on the course of action that it set on, outline what they think is going to happen or what set out what actually did happen and present their case in a strong manner, because again, the defense, that guy should just plead poor, get a defense attorney, plead guilty, and then just go home. And well, not go home, go to prison, because that's where he should be. Another issue I wanted to talk about, though, and it really is the infrastructure bill. And I know I didn't list that one, but that's the one I forgot. I kept saying, which one did I forget to list? The infrastructure bill that's been proposed by the Biden administration. Now, some people are like, oh, this is just a great idea. $1.9 trillion. No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. So here is what, when Biden was running as a presidential candidate, I believe, now you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain, I believe he promised $7 trillion. So if I'm right, which I don't think I'm wrong, then that means that this is yet another campaign promise that has been broken. And I know what people are going to say, well, politicians make promises all the time. Well, if you're not going to keep it, you shouldn't make it, but that's a whole nother story for another time. So he's talking $1.9 trillion over, I believe, 10 years. And that's not enough. We have roads that are deteriorating now. And they're going to take more money to get them repaired. Now, we can't wait 10 years for all of that 1.9 trillion that should have really been 7 trillion, that even Joe Manchin said should be 4 trillion. We can't wait for it. Of course, every Republican says that they're going to vote against it, which, what do you expect? That's who they are. And I forget what it does. This is another one I'm going to cheat and get my phone out, because I want to bring up exactly what the $1.9 trillion does. But it could be, something else. So let's see. Hold on just a moment. So we're going to say one. Nope. Oh, no. Let's see. I can't even type. No. Okay, so something is called infrastructure, not stimulus. Infrastructure. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay. So there are, believe it or not, as much as I'm criticizing Biden for another campaign promise broken, there are actually some good parts to this. And I want to talk about that. So the plan would cover the U.S. transportation infrastructure, which is what I just talked about, water systems, broadband, which is internet, manufacturing goals also. This is where I have a little problem at. So there's also an increase for the corporate tax rate. Now, I've been saying it should go back to the 45% that it was when I was a child. But Biden is only supporting it going from 21%, which is what 45 signed, to 28%. And you're like, oh, wow, that's 7%. But I think it should be back to the 45. And it would prevent offshore profits. That part is good. That part is definitely a good thing. The proposal would put, again, 621 billion into transportation infrastructure such as bridges, roads, public transit, ports, airports, and electric vehicle development. It would direct 400 billion to care for elderly and disabled people. It would inject more than 300 billion into improving drinking water infrastructure, which, oh boy, do we need our drinking water, even outside of Flint, is terrible. It would also that money would also go for drink water improvements and upgrading electric grids. It would put 300 billion into building retrofitting affordable housing with construction and upgrading to our schools. And that's important. That's where I think an improvement can be made. Our public schools are in shambles. They're not um, fitted to take on the environment that they're in, if that makes sense. So, in other words, the buildings are in disarray. They emit all of this wasteful energy and structure, and it's taken care of. So, I think that amount should be definitely higher. Um, then there will be another 580 billion in American manufacturing, research, development, and job training efforts. So, like I said, even though I think the majority of this is terrible, there are some good points, but I definitely think it should be more dollars because, again, all of those are over a 10-year period. So you take all of those numbers and you divide them by 10, and you get the numbers that you're going to get. And then you can see the deficiencies. If you take 600, I think 82 billion, pardon me, divided by 10, well, I'm not good at math, but I think that's 68 million. I'm not good at math. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not good at math. Um, but of course, um, every Republican is going to vote for it, against it. They're not going to vote for it. They're going to vote against it. And I guess that's their plan for the next 4 years is just of everything that Biden proposes, just to vote against it. But I'm pretty sure this will pass. And that was the one I forgot at the top. I was like, okay, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. Another thing I wanted to talk about before I get to the idiot of the week is the new, not the new format, but some slight changes that are going to be coming within the next couple of weeks. So right now, I have a website that is being redeveloped. And instead of, once you go on there now, you'll see that you have to go to another website to get all my links. That won't be the case after May 1st. Starting May 1st, everything will be on one page. It'll be tracymedia.com, and it's going to be so much better. This show is going to, of course, it'll always tape on Mondays, air on Fridays. And by the end of this month, this show will have a theme song. I've been very excited about this. So it's going to be great. Just a fantastic way to kind of introduce this show. Of course, I said the panel will be back next week, but I decided to do a show by myself this week because I just kind of wanted to catch up. And the fact that I was sick last week, stayed sick most of the week, but I'm feeling fine now. Thank you. Just wanted to catch you up on that. So the show is getting a theme song. Everything's going to be on the one website. Oh, I did. Let's see. One more thing I wanted to talk about. Well, of course, support us on Patreon. We definitely need some new lights, as you can see. I'm kind of splitting now. I'm still editing my videos myself, which I'm not an editor. So someday I would like to afford to hire someone to edit these videos for me and not do it by myself. So I would appreciate any type of support that I could get. The website's in the link, and that'll link to the Patreon, which you'll see, of course, in the description section. But just wanted to kind of give you an insert of what it is that I've been up to. And finally, I just wanted to thank you all for continuing to watch this channel. The growth has been a little slower than I would have liked, but to organically grow it, I think it's going to be the better option than just doing something stupid to go viral. I don't think that's the format for this show. And I don't. It just makes my stomach icky that I even thought of that, and so um, wanted to sincerely apologize for that. You didn't know I was thinking it, but I was thinking it, and I'm like, what can I do to go viral? No, we're just not going to do that. We're going to stay to what we've been doing. There was one more announcement that I wanted to make, and then I promised I would get to the idiot of the week. So, in July, specifically July the 5th, I will be going live on YouTube Mondays through Fridays for 1 hour a day. I don't think it'll start out being an hour, but pretty much I'll be talking about news in a current state. So that show will be coming on, I believe, 8 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. or maybe 7:30 to 8:30. I haven't decided the time, but the link to that new show, which is called Stay Woke with Tracy, that will be in the links. We haven't launched yet, so that's more of a reason than I need. You all who can, please support us. Please support Tracy Media on Patreon. Support starts at $3 a month, which is what, 10 cents a day. I think if there's 31 days in a month, or there's 28 in every month, you take 3 divided by 28, which is 90 cents. I can't, math is not my thing, but I know we need your support to keep this going. So please support us in the Patreon, and I would greatly appreciate it. So with all that said, I now can get to my idiot of the week. It's pretty simple. It's Matt Gaetz. Just resign. Just resign. If these things are true, resign. I would almost say resign, even if they're not true, because it's making you look bad, but you won't do that. Just go ahead and resign, because I think the person that is in jail in Florida now, Joe Greenberg, is probably going to testify against you. So just go ahead, resign now. Get somebody to replace you. It's a Republican district. It's not like a Democrat that's going to win it, because they won't try. They never do. So just go. You definitely are the definition of idiot of the week. And of course we have a fire truck going by, but that's okay. So that's my choice for idiot of the week. I'll see you all next week when the panel will be back. We'll have some deep discussions. You won't have to hear me ramble. I appreciate it so much that you tuned in. And again, remember to like, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon starting at $3 a day. All the links are in the description section. Thank you and have a fantastic week, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.